The light illuminates an underground cavern, seemingly inhabited, with grotesque cave houses surrounded by lush, proliferating vegetation. At the far end, a Chinese monastery is visible, contrasting with the barren area where the vegetation fades away, leaving dry, withered trees and a dark, ominous aura. The air is filled with a constant, rhythmic, thudding sound, as if something is relentlessly pounding. Switching scenes, we find two young individuals, their clothes stained with dirt and blood. One is grinding herbs in a stone mortar and pestle, irritated by the girl beside him who, seemingly out of her mind, tries to eat the medicine, mistaking it for candy. The protagonist, Li Huowang, pushes her away, sighing, "This is medicinal mud, not candy," while she smiles, amused. They are in a strange place, a cavern filled with other workers like him. These figures, with deformed and malnourished bodies, grind herbs on a round stone table. Li Huowang wonders why he's here, but is soon distracted by a scream. Turning around, he sees a man about to assault a beautiful girl with white hair while others watch, laughing. Li Huowang, convinced that this is all an illusion, decides to act. Unable to hold back, he strikes the man with the pestle, injuring him in the forehead. The girl takes refuge behind him. The man, shouting in anger, says, "You're finished. Do you know how important I am to the master? If he finds out, you'll regret it." To this, Li Huowang responds, "He's worth as much as my fart." The man and the others fall silent, shocked by Li Huowang's response. They have never heard anyone insult the master before. As the silence lingers, the sound of footsteps approaches, followed by a voice asking if they are done yelling. A disciple of the master, dressed in a long white Taoist robe and holding a ritual broom, steps forward. He informs Li Huowang and the girl, Wang, that the master wants to see them. The injured man mocks them, saying, "Looks like it's your turn today." The girl, trying to stop Li Huowang, grabs his sleeve and pleads with him not to go, but he shakes her off indifferently. The three of them head toward the exit of the cave, with the girl watching him leave, a worried expression on her face. Confused, he reflects on what just happened. Why did he get so angry with these creatures? He's not usually this reckless. He tells himself to calm down, thinking, "That wasn't me." The girl, still bothering him, taps him on the back. Li Huowang turns and asks what she's doing. She shows him the candy, which is just the melted medicine in her hand. Speechless, takes it from her, while the girl, unaware of what's coming, laughs happily. Upon reaching their destination, thick black smoke rose around them, accompanied by an acrid stench that burned their nostrils. Beside the two, sparks of fire erupted rhythmically from a massive blackened metal cauldron, its sides adorned with indecipherable symbols. Ahead of them, through the haze, a hunched old figure could be seen. The man was bent over an enormous stone mortar, so large it seemed capable of holding an entire person. With slow, deliberate movements, he ground something using an equally oversized pestle, producing a damp, heavy sound. The girl bowed deeply, breaking the oppressive silence with a reverent greeting. "Master, we have finally arrived." The old man turned slowly, revealing a face that looked like a mask of nightmares. His skin was rough and uneven, covered in oozing pustules, and his mouth revealed decayed, crooked teeth that seemed unnaturally protruding. His voice, coarse like sandpaper, rose in a tone of reproach. "You've made me wait too long." Wang tried to reply, but the master gave him no chance. With unexpected agility, the old man executed a perfect backflip, landing smoothly between Wang and the girl. Before anyone could react, he grabbed the young woman by the neck with a merciless grip and hurled her toward the giant mortar. She landed inside, dazed and confused. For a moment, she looked at her surroundings. The vivid colors and strange shapes deceived her, making her think they were candies. With an innocent smile, she muttered, "Thank you, master." But her naivety was shattered instantly. The master, wearing a feral grin and eyes wide with madness, raised the massive pestle and began to strike violently. Each blow produced a sickening sound, a mix of shattering bones and crushed flesh. From the mortar oozed a viscous, dark liquid as human fragments and chunks of flesh swirled together into a horrifying concoction. "Start the furnace," the master bellowed, pausing his grisly rhythm. From the shadows emerged two figures dressed as clowns. Their painted smiles were a grotesque parody of cheerfulness, and their mechanical movements made them even more unnerving. Carrying metal buckets, they approached the mortar, scooping up the macabre mixture and dumping it directly into a blazing furnace. The flames roared high, painting the air with a blood-red glow and releasing an unbearable stench. The master inhaled deeply, his eyes closing with an expression of almost ecstatic satisfaction. Then he turned to Wang, pointing at him. "I heard you called me fart. Is that true?" Wang, still paralyzed by the horror of the scene, couldn't find the words to respond. The master, irritated by his silence, began to shake with rage. "Answer me!" he roared, advancing toward Wang with jerky, erratic movements. But Wang remained still. Closing his eyes, he focused inward, trying to reject the reality unfolding around him. Inside his mind, he repeated like a mantra, "This is all fake. The smell, his voice, his face, none of it is real." As his words echoed in his mind, the atmosphere around him began to shift. A vortex of energy enveloped him, growing in intensity. With one final flash of light, Wang vanished, leaving behind the master, the grotesque assistants, and the twisted realm of madness that surrounded them. In the hospital, he wakes up lying on the bed, his body rigidly immobile, wrapped in a composed yet tangled position by bands. His pale face is illuminated by the sunlight streaming in. The sound of the monitor beside him beats an accelerated rhythm, while his labored breathing fills the air. "It's all fake," he murmurs. In the hospital room, the doctor was examining Wang, asking him gently if this time his illusion had changed. Wang, lying on the bed, looked up and began to explain. "Same place, same job, but what?" the doctor inquired, his voice calm but attentive. "This time," Wang continued, his voice tinged with confusion, "the leader of the beggars appeared in front of me. Then he crushed a girl right before my eyes, turning her into an elixir." With a thoughtful expression, Dr. Lee listened carefully, his mind working through what Wang was saying. Wang, however, was desperate for answers. "Can you tell me what these illusions mean? Are they related to my psyche? Why does this keep happening?" Dr. Lee took a moment before responding, his tone reassuring yet professional. "You don't need to worry. Just focus on maintaining your mental health and be mindful of how long each illusion lasts. That's the most important thing right now." Wang sat quietly, his eyes distant, as if the doctor's words were nothing new to him. He had heard similar things before. As the doctor turned to leave, he paused at the door, adding one final piece of advice. "Now that you've come out of the illusion perception disorder, everything that happened in there is false. Don't let yourself be deceived again. Remember, whenever you feel yourself slipping into an illusion, stay focused and clear-headed. Only then will you be able to leave this place." Just as the door closed behind the doctor, a familiar voice called from the doorway. It was Yang Na, a childhood friend of Wang's, stepping into the room. "Did you hear?" she asked softly, concern in her eyes. "You have to listen to what the doctor said, okay?" Wang turned toward her, a small smile appearing on his face. She called him by his nickname, Nana, and as she sat beside him, Wang couldn't hide the way he looked at her. There was something more than just friendship in his eyes. Yang Na, noticing the intensity of his gaze, blushed and smiled shyly. "Stop smiling like that," she teased. "You're making me nervous. Look what I brought you." She pulled a bundle from her bag and placed it in his hands. "Ta-da!" she said with a flourish. "School materials for your high school exams." Wang blinked in confusion, not understanding. "Huh, we grew up playing together. Is this how you're going to betray me now?" "Of course not," she said, playfully smacking Wang on the head with the book. Then, with a mischievous grin, She pulled out a surprise, a game console. "If you don't call me sister, I won't give it to you," she teased, holding the console just out of his reach so he couldn't grab it. Wang's face moved closer to hers, his breath brushing against her face. "Sister," he said softly. For a moment she hesitated, his face just inches from hers. But then, before she knew it, Wang managed to snatch the console from her hands. As they began playing together, Wang let out a sigh, his fingers pausing on the game controller. "You know," he said, his voice a little heavier, "it's so boring here. Every day feels like a repeat. Even if I'm not crazy yet, I feel like I might become so from being stuck in this place for so long." Yang Na gave him a concerned look, but she tried to lighten the mood. "Don't play too much. You promised me you'd do your homework, remember?" Wang sighed again, reluctantly putting the game down. He moved closer to hug her, his voice quieter now. "Do you remember the promise we made? To go to the same university together? I'll get better, Nana. I promise I'll get better, and I'll get out of here soon." She smiled warmly at him, her eyes shining with hope. "I'll wait for you," she said softly, the words hanging in the air between them. The moment was filled with unspoken feelings, the air thick with the quiet understanding they shared. Wang and Nana continue chatting when Wang rises from the bed and, noticing the time, tells her it's getting late and he'll accompany her outside. However, as soon as he takes a step, something feels off. He halts, placing a hand on his head due to a sudden pain. His eyes land on the bedside table, and there it is, a mortar and pestle. An image he thought he'd never see again. He had followed the doctor's advice, taken the prescribed medication, yet nothing seemed to work. Concerned, Nana asks, "Are you okay?" Wang, forcing a smile, jokes, "Did I scare you?" Annoyed, Nana turns her head away and snaps, "Do you think you're still a kid to joke about these things?" She leaves, frustrated, leaving Wang behind. He questions himself, wondering if he imagined the strange sight. Looking back at the table, the object is gone. "Wait for me, Nana!" he calls, rushing after her. Outside the hospital entrance, the evening has fallen. Catching up to her, Wang apologizes, saying, "I just wanted to make you happy." His loud words attract attention from other patients, who glance at him with faintly grim smiles, but Wang remains oblivious. Hoping to mend things, he asks Nana not to be mad at him. She ignores him at first, but then playfully pokes his cheek with her finger. "I'll come visit again, but you better take care of yourself, okay? Otherwise, I won't forgive you," she says with a smile. Wang nods. Okay, they bid farewell, and Nana walks away. Night falls, and Wang finds himself strolling through the hospital corridor, deep in thought. For a moment, I really thought I saw the mortar and pestle. Is my condition worsening? If that's the case, I won't be able to leave the hospital before the high school exams, and I won't be able to attend the same university as Nana. He sighs. Dr. Lee might be able to help. He's the best doctor my father could find. Frustrated, he mutters aloud, "Ah, this is so irritating." Just then, he feels something odd in his pocket. His heart races as he pulls out a mysterious item. To his shock, it's the same half-melted candy that the strange senior sister gave him in his hallucination. "This isn't possible," Wang whispers, staring at the candy. His mind racing, he licks it to confirm what it is. It's real. He rushes off, intending to tell Dr. Lee, but suddenly stops in his tracks. Wait. What if it's not just hallucinations? What if that world is real? If that's true, there's much more in that world than just candy. This could be my chance. The scene transitions to Wang addressing the workers inside the cave. His voice carries a note of urgency as he asks, "Does anyone here have any money? Or perhaps precious metals like gold or silver? Maybe jade ornaments? You won't need them in a place like this, so why not lend them to me for a while?" His words are met with silence. The workers merely stare at him, their expressions blank, as if questioning his sanity. Letting out a resigned sigh, Wang shakes his head, realizing the futility of his request. "What was I thinking?" he muses bitterly. "It's impossible for these people to own anything of value. They're just here to serve as human catalysts for refining alchemy pills." Lost in his thoughts, Wang is pulled back to the present by the soft voice of the white-haired girl. She tugs gently on his sleeve and says, "Senior Brother Li, can you come here for a moment?" Curious, Wang follows her behind a large rock. There, she sits down against the cold, uneven surface of the wall. Slowly, she raises her leg and removes a delicate golden anklet. The piece glints faintly in the dim light as she extends it toward him, revealing her graceful foot in the process. "Would this help you, senior brother?" she asks softly, her voice tinged with both hesitation and trust. Wang crouches down and takes the anklet from her outstretched hand, turning it over in his fingers. The weight and craftsmanship of the item tell him it isn't worth much, but his pragmatic side takes over. Not much, but gold is still gold, he thinks to himself. "Not bad," he mutters aloud before slipping the anklet into his robe. With a casual wave of his hand, he adds, "I'll borrow this for now and return it to you later." But the faint glint in his eye betrays his true intention. He has no plans of giving it back. To pacify her, he pulls out a small piece of candy and holds it out. "Here, take this. It's sweet and edible," he says. She accepts it with a soft smile, offering him a quiet word of thanks. Unbeknownst to them, several other workers are watching from behind the rocks. Their faces alight with mischief. They exchange amused glances. One of them whispers, "I thought there'd be something worth watching, but this is so dull." The others stifle their laughter, chuckling quietly. Their amusement is short-lived. A booming voice reverberates through the cave, cutting through the stillness and startling everyone. "What are you all doing here together? Why aren't you at work?" The workers scatter in a panic like startled birds as an inner sect disciple strides into view. His gaze is cold and commanding, and his attention quickly fixes on Wang. With a sneer, he addresses him, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Junior Brother Li, it's such a pity you were completely useless to the master during the last task." Wang stares at him silently, his mind racing. "What's his name again?" he wonders, racking his memory. "Xuanyang." That's it. Xuanyang doesn't wait for a response. Turning to the workers, he barks, "Get back to work. If the medicine isn't prepared properly, the master will flay you alive." As the workers rush to comply, Wang's gaze drifts to the jade pendant hanging from Xuanyang's waist. The intricate carving and rich hue catch his eye, and a spark of excitement ignites in his chest. That pendant. If I could get my hands on it. Later that night, under the cover of darkness, Wang sneaks toward Xuanyang's room. He moves carefully, every step calculated to avoid detection. Finding the door slightly ajar, he slips inside and spots his prize hanging where he had last seen it. With bated breath, he snatches the jade pendant and tucks it securely into his robe. A wave of relief washes over him. That was almost too easy, he marvels. Xuanyang wasn't even here tonight. As he descends the stairs, a triumphant smile spreads across his face. His thoughts race ahead to what this treasure could mean for him. If I can get this out and sell it, I'll have more than enough to cover Nana's university expenses, and mine too. Humming a light tune under his breath, he continues down the dimly lit staircase. But as he nears the bottom, he notices a faint glow of light and the shadowy outline of a figure standing nearby. Before he can react, a voice speaks from behind him, low and menacing. "What are you doing up so late, Junior Brother Li? Care to explain what's going on?" The voice sends a chill down Wang's spine. He freezes in place, his heart pounding as he tries to think of a way out. Wang, terrified, turned around and realized it was Xuanyang standing before him. As he saw Xuan dressed in the ceremonial robes of the medicinal sacrifice, he couldn't help but ask, "Why are you dressed like that?" Xuan, holding a candle in one hand, simply replied, "You're lucky this time." Without offering any further explanation, he grabbed Wang by the collar of his robe and said, "Come on, we're leaving this hellhole. We've already sabotaged the senior gatekeeper." Wang, confused, asked, "Leaving? You want to escape?" Before he could process the situation, Xuan, believing Wang might try to alert someone, suddenly grabbed him by the neck and threw him against a nearby wall. With a fierce look, Xuan growled, "If you don't come, you'll die. There's no alternative. We're not letting you run off to tell that monster what we've done." As Wang struggled to regain his composure, he began to think how surreal this situation was. He was annoyed but somehow still calm. "This is all just an illusion," he thought to himself. "What could a bunch of NPCs possibly do to me? I can always return to the hospital." He shut his eyes tightly, hoping to return to his familiar world. The moment his eyes opened, he found himself back in the hospital, just as before, bound and gagged in the same uncomfortable position on the bed. "The nurses are sleeping at this hour," he murmured. He couldn't check if his jade pendant and golden anklet had come with him to this reality, but he figured he'd check later. Before he could dwell further on it, he found himself back in the cultivation world, inhabiting the body of the boy with the same name. However, everything felt like it had reset, as if time and space rewound every time he returned. There was no one around, not a trace of what had happened earlier. "It's just another illusion," Wang reassured himself, determined not to let his fears control him. He laid back down, thinking he might as well get some rest. As the sun rose, one of the master's assistants rushed into the cave, panting. "Everyone, wake up! The master has ordered us to gather at the Huiyan Hall immediately." Everyone in the cave, who had been sleeping in their straw beds, woke up, confused and disoriented. One of them suggested, "We should go right now, or something bad might happen to us." Soon, they all gathered outside the Huiyan Hall. The door creaked open, and the master emerged, asking, "Is everyone here?" No one answered. Wang, still puzzled, thought to himself, "What is that old man up to?" The master, with a rope in hand, dragged 4 bound and gagged individuals from behind him and said, "Last night, at 3 a.m, someone tried to escape. 2 of them were my personal disciples. I'm very disappointed. The rules of our sect are clear. Those who deserve rewards will receive them, and those who make mistakes will be punished. So," as he spoke, the master dragged the traitors to the front, their faces filled with terror. Xuan, his mouth gagged, looked desperately to say something, but his words were muffled. Wang, observing the scene, thought to himself, "How pathetic. They were caught so easily." With a flick of his wrist, the master tossed the 4 traitors into the air, conjuring a deep, ominous pit. The pit emitted grotesque sounds and a foul stench. "This is where they belong," the master said coldly as he threw them in. Wang, still convinced this was all a figment of his imagination, told himself, "These are just illusions. None of this is real." But then, a chilling scream echoed through the air, followed by the sound of something large and terrifying moving behind him. He spun around, his heart racing. Tentacles emerged from the shadows, and one of them struck a person next to him. Panicked, Wang thought, "What is this thing? Could this be another part of my imagination? No, that's impossible. My hallucinations can't hurt me. This has never happened before." The air thickened with the sound of desperate cries, and Wang realized with growing horror that something far worse was happening than he could have imagined. The master, floating in the air, was surrounded by eerie, twisted tentacles, their dark, slimy surfaces interrupted by bulbous red protrusions. He spoke in a commanding voice. "From now on, anyone with malicious intent should think carefully about what they have seen today." As everyone looked down in fear, unable to utter a word, the master descended and began walking back into the temple. He muttered, "Helping someone attain immortality is an act of virtue. If I, your master, become immortal, I will not forget your kindness," he continued. Then, turning to Wang, he asked, "Why didn't you accept the invitation to join those traitors last night?" His voice carried a mix of curiosity and confusion. Wang, still frozen in his mind, believed that all of this was merely an illusion and showed no fear. He didn't respond. The master, with a light tap on Wang's head, walked away saying, "Very well, I like you. You have potential. From now on, you'll be a registered disciple of mine and will take care of the materials room." Wang, surprised, thought to himself, "Did I just rise in status? No, that can't be true. It's only because so many people have died, and now there are positions to be filled." As he turned, he remembered that anyone becoming a disciple had to be given a Taoist name. "Xuanyang," the master said. "From now on, your Taoist name will be Xuanyang." Ironically, Wang thought, the previous Xuanyang is dead, and now I am the new one. Dazed, Wang found himself holding a small pouch, which the master had tossed to him. "Inside, you'll find 5 pills I've refined myself. Taking one will not only add 10 years to your life, but also temporarily grant you supernatural strength as a lifesaver." As the master walked through the crowd, he turned toward them with a sinister smile. "Did you see that? If you help me, you will be rewarded with substantial rewards. But if you oppose me, you will only meet death." Wang, staring at the pouch in his hands, couldn't help but think of what had happened to the girl. He wondered if these pills were made from real people too. Later, in his hospital room, Wang sat on the bed, holding the jade pendant, the pills, and the bracelet, wondering if they were authentic. If they're real, can these pills really work? Just as he was about to try one, Nana burst into the room, slamming the door. "Li Hua Wang!" she shouted. "I got your call and skipped class, sneaking out of school. I hope this is something important. It better not be a prank." As he approached the door, he quickly checked the hallway to make sure no one was around before shutting the door behind him and pulling the curtains tight. "Eeeeee! Li Hua Wang," Nana said, her voice trembling with embarrassment, clearly thinking something inappropriate. "Why did you close the curtains too? The nurses can hear us." In the background, the speaker above the room began to beep. Beep! Beep! Amidst the laughter of others, a female voice reassured, "It's all fine, no one can hear anything. Go for it, little Li." Wang, ignoring the commotion, handed the jade pendant to Nana and then turned to the nurses, quietly urging them, "Don't gossip too much. Focus on the ICU instead." Nana, curious, asked, "What is this?" Wang motioned for her to be quiet and then began explaining everything that had happened, speaking in hushed tones. Days passed, and Wang sat on the bed, his leg crossed, his face a mix of worry and contemplation. Even my own parents don't believe me. Everyone thinks I'm crazy, he thought. But I have no one else I can trust. Nana is the only one who listens to me. "Nana, you have to trust me." Shortly after, the nurse's voice crackled through the hospital speaker announcing, "Xiao Li, your little girlfriend is here to visit you." Hearing this, Wang's face lit up with joy. "Nana!" he exclaimed, rushing excitedly toward the door. As he stepped outside, he noticed 3 security guards passing by, armed with a restraining fork and a shield. Curious, he called out to one of them, "Mr. Zhao, what's going on?" The guard stopped, turned back, and sternly replied, "Xiao Li, go back inside and lock your door. If you see old Liu, report him immediately. That old man's definitely skipped his meds again." Wang nodded, waved the guard goodbye, and went back to his room. Closing the door behind him, he pondered what the guard had said. Old Liu escaped from the ICU. How could he, in that condition? He shrugged it off. Whatever, it's not my problem. Right now, I need to see Nana. The two met in a quiet corner of the hospital to avoid drawing attention. Nana, lowering her voice, revealed, "Someone appraised the jade pendant and the gold bracelet you gave me. The pendant's an authentic antique. It's worth 400,000 RMB, about $55,000. And the bracelet, it's real gold." Wang's face lit up with excitement. He pushed back his long hair, revealing his sharp features, and grinned like a madman. I knew it! I'm not crazy. By the way, he looks much more handsome with his face unobstructed by his hair. Overwhelmed with joy, he hugged Nana, lifting her off the ground and spinning her around. See, I told you. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. But in this moment of happiness, something was off. The figure Wang was embracing wasn't Nana. It was the girl with white hair from his hallucinations. If you recall the earlier scene when Wang chased her out of the hospital, something strange happened then too. Why were the patients laughing? Did Wang notice it back then? Or did he ignore it, chalking it up to more hallucinations? As the two strolled through the hospital grounds, Wang bragged about his abilities. See? My skills are real. I don't want to recover so soon. Then he looked at Nana with a mischievous grin and asked, Are you ready to become a rich lady? She playfully punched him in the side. What are you talking about, little brother? Nana teased. I don't care about money. More than anything, I want you to get better. Promise me you'll stick to your treatment and take your medicine. If you don't, I'll never help you again. Suddenly, a shadow loomed behind them. Old Liu appeared out of nowhere, grabbing Nana by the arms and forcing her to the ground. Wang's voice roared in fury. She's my girlfriend, old Liu. Let her go. But before he could act, something struck him hard on the head. Blood trickled down as he collapsed to the ground, teetering on the edge of consciousness. In his hazy state, he recalled the pills his master had given him, the ones that supposedly granted him not just 10 more years of life, but also temporary supernatural strength. As Nana called out to him in desperation, Li Huawang, are you okay? She saw something that stunned her. Wang, his vision blurred and head spinning, swallowed one of the pills. With an eerie red aura enveloping him, Wang stood up as if nothing had happened. His bloodshot eyes glinted with a feral madness as he moved like a bullet. In a single motion, he grabbed old Liu's face with his left hand and slammed him into the ground with bone-crushing force. Blood splattered as Wang sneered, his red eyes glowing and his crazed smile widening. I told you to stop, didn't I? He growled. Didn't you hear me? Wang finds himself detained, gagged, and chained in a padded room meant for dangerous patients. He yells at Dr. Li, who stands before him demanding to be set free. I already told you, it was self-defense. I was trying to protect Nana. He attacked me first, Wang shouts desperately. Dr. Li, unfazed, points to a nearby photograph of the injured man. This is your idea of a counterattack. Look at what you did to him, he retorts. Now tell me honestly, Wang, how did you manage to hurt him so badly? I don't believe someone like you could fracture a skull with bare hands. The doctor leans closer, his expression darkening. Choose your words carefully. I hate patients who lie. Wang hesitates, his mind racing for a way out. He can't reveal the truth about the pill. As Dr. Li repeats his question, asking if Wang is even listening, Wang closes his eyes and wills himself away from the situation. Suddenly, he awakens in his straw bed, clenching his fist in the air. There, he mutters to himself. Problem solved. The scene transitions to a ceremonial hall. A large statue of an elderly Taoist stands at the forefront, flanked by 2 smaller statues of lesser importance. Before them lies a staircase lined with commemorative plaques. The setting appears to be a tomb, or rather, a place to pay respects to the ancestors of a Taoist master. The master is seen lighting incense while his disciples sit cross-legged on straw cushions behind him. Breaking the silence, the master addresses the group. Today, we welcome a new disciple to the Qingfeng sect. Xuanyang has just joined us and has much to learn. As his senior brother, teach him well, he says, nodding toward one of the disciples. The senior disciple bows respectfully. Yes, master. Good. That's all for now, the master continues. It's already past 7. Go and have breakfast. As the disciples disperse, Wang notices a fellow disciple casting a sinister glance at him. Suspicious, he wonders who the man is and why he's being watched so intently. As they descend the stairs, Wang strikes up a conversation with his senior brother, Xuan Yuan. Wang learns that the man with the sharp gaze is senior brother Zheng Kun, the only close disciple left after the defection of senior brothers Zheng Kan and Zheng Zhen. Be careful around him, Xuanyuan warns, gesturing subtly. He's a vindictive type. Senior brother Xuanyuan, Wang asks hesitantly. What am I supposed to do now that I've become the master's disciple? Please help me understand my responsibilities. Xuanyuan chuckles. Even though the master has accepted you as a disciple, don't think he'll start teaching you the art of immortality right away. You've got a long way to go, my friend. Wang's eyes light up with excitement. Really? The master can make people immortal? He grabs Xuanyuan's shoulders in disbelief. Xuanyuan, visibly annoyed, pushes Wang's hands away. Don't get so worked up. Of course, the master's mystical abilities are extraordinary. But only inner disciples get the chance to learn such things, like senior brother Zheng Kun. Determined, Wang silently vows to find a way to take advantage of the situation, scheming to gather as many valuable items as he can. Inside the Qingfeng sect's alchemy room, a massive human cauldron burns with a blazing fire. The master moves his hands gracefully to open the cauldron, releasing a blinding light that fills the cave. His disciples watch in awe from behind him. From the cauldron, 5 crimson pills emerge and are swiftly absorbed into a green, ornamented, pill-storing gourd. The master chuckles, clearly pleased with the result. Wang, watching from the sidelines, is amazed. His thoughts race. Making money? I've been thinking too small. If I could bring powers like these into the real world, it'd be incredible. The master calls out, Xuan Yang. Yes, master? Wang replies, snapping out of his thoughts. Already giving me work? I need to prepare and do this right, he thinks to himself. You are now responsible for managing the materials. Go and retrieve a medicinal catalyst called Bai Ling Miao. Still frozen in a bowing position, Wang's heart skipped a beat. That name, he suddenly remembered. It was the name of the white-haired girl who had given him the bracelet. A wave of guilt washed over him as his master's voice snapped him back to the present. I'm talking to you! Can't you hear me? The master barked, his tone sharp. Wang, overwhelmed and unable to respond, made a desperate decision. Without another thought, he fled back to the real world. Awakening with a jolt, Wang found himself bound to a hospital bed. His vision blurred, but he could make out the figures of Dr. Li and his mother hovering over him. Wang, his mother called out, relief and worry etched on her face. Are you okay? Does your head still hurt? No, I'm fine, Mum, Wang replied weakly, his voice still shaky. Oh, my poor boy, she said, brushing his hair gently. You've gotten so thin. Hospital food isn't great, is it? Here, I brought your favorite, milk grapes. Let me feed you. Mom, you don't have to fuss over me, Wang said, smiling faintly as he ate a grape. You're already taking time off work to visit me. That's more than enough. Her eyes softened with relief as she watched her son eat, but the moment was short-lived. She took a deep breath and glanced at Dr. Li, who was standing nearby. You woke up just in time, she said, her tone heavy. I need to talk to you before Dr. Li drags me off to meet old Liu's family. Dr. Li interjected, his voice calm but insistent. They're waiting for you, and it's been a while. I know, she replied firmly, but I need a moment with my son. Wang tried to speak, his words tumbling out in a rush. Mom, it wasn't my fault. It was that old man. She cut him off gently. Wang, Dr. Li told me everything. Don't worry, I'm here for you. I'll handle it. Her words struck him deeply, and for a moment he couldn't find any to reply. He sat in silence, moved by her unwavering support. Okay, I have to go now, she said, standing up. Don't forget to listen to the doctor and take your medicine. As she walked out of the room, we can notice the sadness and anger etched into her expression. Watching her leave, he thought to himself, Mum will fight for justice. I know she will. But before he could dwell on the thought, a strange sensation tugged at his consciousness. Panic surged through him as he realized he was being pulled back into the cultivation world. Damn it. I didn't even think about how to deal with that crazy old man, he cursed internally. The last thing he saw before blacking out was a blurred image of Dr. Li leaning toward him, calling his name. When he opened his eyes again, Wang was lying on the cold ground at the feet of his master. "Finally awake, are you?" The master sneered, his voice dripping with menace. "Yes, master," Wang muttered, forcing himself to stand despite his trembling limbs. His mind raced with thoughts of the white-haired girl, but before he could focus, his master grabbed him by the chin. With an unnervingly wide grin, almost like a joker's smile, the master leaned in close. "Open your mouth," he commanded, his tone sickly sweet, but with a dark undertone. Before Wang has the time to do anything, he forced something into Wang's mouth, writhing black tentacles with red, pulsing protrusions. Wang gagged, barely managing to swallow. What the hell did he just make me eat? Wang cursed internally, fighting the urge to retch. "Good boy," the master cooed mockingly. "Now open wide again." Behind the master, we can notice something. A sarcophagus loomed in the shadows, covered in fulu. Yellow paper talismans often used to seal supernatural entities. The sarcophagus was wrapped tightly in red ropes and encased within a glowing magic circle. Yet it seemed far from contained. Tentacles, similar to what he had just been forced to ingest, writhed and stretched against the restraints, as if yearning to break free. While Wang sat with his mouth open, tentacles writhing as they tried to enter, the master calmly explained that this tai sui was good stuff, something that would help suppress his hysteria. But Wang refused to eat it. Disgusted, he pulled it out, with his hand. At this, the master called, "Changming, Changren." "Yes, master," the two disciples replied, nodding. They stepped forward, using their swords like forks to press against the back of Wang's neck, preventing him from moving. "You won't eat it, kid. That's not for you to decide," the master said as he retrieved the tai sui. Wang, still unwilling, thought of escaping to another realm. Closing his eyes, he felt himself losing consciousness. Suddenly, he heard a voice calling his name. It was Nana. He awoke abruptly, as if he'd been holding his breath underwater for too long, finding himself gagged as usual. Nana stood before him, asking if he was okay, but her question was interrupted by Dr. Li. "What did you see this time?" Dr. Li asked, his tone clinical. "Your mental state hasn't been stable recently." As Wang looked at the doctor, his hallucination began to resurface. He realized he wasn't fully free from that state and asked, "Do you have any medicine to suppress these hallucinations?" "I just want to rest properly." The doctor, heading out, replied, "There's still some left. I'll get a fresh supply." Nana, meanwhile, went to the bedside table to retrieve what remained. He said softly, "Xiaoli, the medicine will only suppress it. If you truly want to heal, you'll need to follow my guidance." As she approached with the medicine and a glass of water, Wang urgently said, "I don't need water. Just give me the pills." His face was tense with urgency. But the moment he put the pills in his mouth, the hallucination returned. So Nana's hand became that of his master, tentacles and all, and Wang unknowingly swallowed them, mistaking them for medicine. Almost immediately, he felt a wave of relief, thinking he was safe and that the hallucinations would stop. "Safe?" Nana asked, her face filled with concern. "What did you see that scared you so much?" Still paranoid, Wang replied, "There's a strange guy over there telling me I have hysteria. He tried to make me eat something weird to cure it. What a joke." "Impossible," he muttered to himself. "I'm from the modern world. How could I be this elixir catalyst? Li Huawang. It's obvious these are just hallucinations." But as he spoke, a tentacle appeared in his mouth. Before he could react, his jaw opened wide with a guttural groan, multiple tentacles bursting forth as his eyes widened with tears of pain and nausea. Wang thought desperately, why do the hallucinations persist even after taking the medicine? Calming himself slightly, he told himself it was fine, that closing his eyes would reset everything. His consciousness sank into the depths of his mind. When he reopened his eyes, he was back in front of the master, the two disciples still standing. Behind him, the master, hand dripping with saliva, said, "You said you wouldn't eat it, but now you've nearly swallowed my hand. You really think you're not schizophrenic?" The master continued, "Now that the hysteria is gone, you can work properly. But remember, the Qingfeng Temple doesn't keep anyone who isn't useful. Come to me every month for your medicine." Overwhelmed, Wang began to cry. The polyp-like creature wriggled in his mouth, threatening to escape, but in that moment, he didn't care. Despair, disbelief, and a profound sense of loss consumed him. He lifted his head, and memories of Nana flashed before him, shattering like a broken mirror. In his mind, he asked himself, how is this possible? Could it be that this place is real and reality is fake? Gripping his throat, tormented by the alien sensation of the tentacle now lodged in symbiosis within his esophagus, Wang desperately tried to rid himself of the abomination. Refusing to accept the grim reality, his mind raced. Impossible! Nana, this can't be real! Black liquid spewed from his mouth as his body convulsed in rejection. Raising his tear-streaked face, saliva dripping from his lips, he saw her, Nana's soul, standing beside him. Her ethereal voice called his name. Turning with wide, disbelieving eyes, he gasped, "Nana, you didn't leave! You're still here!" For a fleeting moment, he believed she had stayed, that she hadn't abandoned him. But as he blinked, her spectral form began to fade. His eyes widened in shock. In a frantic act of desperation, he reached out, his trembling hand grasping at nothing but the cold, oppressive air. "Nana! Nana!" he screamed, but his cries echoed in vain. The emptiness overwhelmed him. His lips quivered as he bit down hard in frustration, his voice breaking into a guttural roar. "Why? Why does this torment follow me, even here, in this cursed place?" Deep within the cavern where the workers brewed medicine, Bai Ling Miao hurried over with quick, light steps, carrying a bowl of bread in her hands. Wang sat slumped against the wall, his face pale and hollow. She knelt before him, holding out the bowl. "Senior Brother Li, please eat something. You haven't eaten in a day." Wang's weary eyes shifted to the pendant in her hand. "Where did you get that?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "You gave it to me, Senior Brother," she replied softly. "I told you I didn't need it, but you insisted, placing it in my hand while laughing, saying you weren't sick." "And then?" he pressed. "Then," Ling Miao continued hesitantly, "another Senior Brother saw an opportunity. He picked up a stone and hurled it at your head. He thought you were dead. And then he tried to attack me." Wang's gaze darkened. "What happened to him?" "You don't remember," Ling Miao whispered. "You killed him, Senior Brother Wang." Wang clenched his fists, his thoughts unraveling. That wasn't old Liu. The realization dawned on him like a bitter frost. There was no old Liu. This isn't the hospital. His voice broke as he muttered to himself, "I've truly lost my mind." Later, while overseeing disciples scrubbing the massive cauldron caked with blood, Wang stood in silence. Watching them toil, his thoughts spiraled into regret. If this is reality, then I'm guilty. Guilty for what happened to Junior Sister, and to everyone else. They'll all die here, eventually, and the true culprit behind it all is that lunatic old master. Xuana. "Yang!" The master's voice snapped him out of his thoughts. Wang flinched, startled to realize the man had approached unnoticed. "Yes, master," Wang answered, his voice steady despite his unease. The master's gaze turned cold, his tone sharp. "Don't test my patience. What are you thinking about?" He loomed closer, his expression darkening. "Speak!" The young disciple, his face slightly panicked, tried to find a way out and said, "Master, I truly admire your extraordinary alchemical talents. I often think about when I'll be able to master this art and reach your level of skill." Zheng Kun, the senior disciple, couldn't help but roll his eyes, thinking to himself, what a shameless sycophant. But the master only chuckled and responded, ambition is not a bad thing, you know. Zheng, taken aback, thought, I can't believe it. The master actually fell for this pretext. The master, casually adjusting his beard with his fingers, continued, it's not that I don't want to teach you, but becoming proficient in this art is not so simple. Pills are easy enough, but if you wish to attain immortality, you must practice both internal and external cultivation. Wang, eager to understand, asked, Master, are you on the path to immortality yourself? He glanced at the cauldron, filled with self-assurance, and declared, becoming immortal is no simple feat, but I will succeed, and do you know why? Wang, feeling a mix of skepticism and curiosity, replied, no, Master, I don't. The master, a glint of pride in his eyes, gave a knowing smile, before Zheng suddenly bowed and interrupted, Master, it's almost midnight. If we don't prepare now, we won't be able to finish before morning. Fine. We'll begin. The preparations now, the master said gruffly. Zheng, his tone respectful yet insistent, responded, yes, master. He then turned to Xuanyang, instructing him, go fetch the materials and the medicines we prepared yesterday. Xuanyang, slightly confused, asked, what about the human catalyst? Zheng, suddenly turning to point at Wang, accused him, you were supposed to bring the girl with the white hair 2 days ago, but because of your hysteria, the master had to delay everything. Don't you remember? The timing and properties of the human catalyst and the medicine are both critical to making a good pill. If either one, he sighed, clearly frustrated. Forget it. Even if I explained it all to you, you wouldn't understand a thing. Just go work. In that moment, Wang's mind raced as he remembered the unfinished matter with Bai Ling Miao. If he didn't do something soon, she would be transformed into a pill. The thought sent a chill down his spine. Meanwhile, in the material room of Qingfeng Temple, workers huddled behind rocks, whispering nervously as they observed the scene unfolding before them. Some muttered hopelessly, he's back again. There's no way out. We're all doomed. Others watched with visible fear, while a few remained indifferent as Wang addressed Bai Ling Miao. Come with me, he said firmly. She kneeled and nodded, obediently, saying, yes, senior brother. As they moved through the temple, Ling Miao, unable to contain her emotions, asked in a trembling voice, if I don't make it, will you deliver a message to my family for me? My parents live at the foot of Nukshin Mountain in Liang country. She began to sob, her voice breaking as she continued. Tell them that I was never a disrespectful daughter, but I won't be able to accompany them anymore. Wang, his expression hardening, shook his head. There's no time for that, he said coldly. Ling Miao, her eyes filled with confusion and tears, looked up at him, but then saw Wang holding a knife. His words came like a cold command. Take off your pants. Suck it. Confused and terrified, she stammered, Senior brother. Li? Nice. The scene then shifted to the master, standing triumphantly atop a massive mortar, wielding a large pestle to crush something within. Blood sprayed into the air as the grinding continued. Wang, now at the master's side, hurriedly announced, Master, I've brought the human catalyst, keeping a firm grip on Ling Miao's arm to ensure she didn't collapse from exhaustion. Heh. Xuanyang, well done, the master exclaimed, his face twisted into a crazed grin. Come here, my good disciple. With a flick of his hand, he cast a spell that drew Ling Miao toward him, grabbing her by the throat. But almost immediately, he noticed blood running down his leg. What rotten luck, he muttered. Why did you have to fall now? The medicinal properties have changed. Ling Miao, confused, stammered. What? He threw her to the ground near Wang. Turning to him, the master ordered, Take her back. Bowing deeply, Wang replied, Yes, master. In his mind, he thought, It's done. A quick glance revealed his arm wrapped in a bandage, the blood not Ling Miao's but his own. Now I just need to get her out of here. Wait a moment, the master said, halting Wang. Now that the medicinal guide is useless, go and fetch another one. I recall there's a white medicinal guide. Be quick, don't waste my time. Shocked but obedient, Wang hurried to the supply room. There, an old man with white hair begged him, "Senior brother Li, please, I don't want to die." Ling Miao, standing behind, clutched her face in despair and wept. Back in the workshop, the master worked, on a pill, his focus unbroken. It was only then that Wang realized, I haven't saved Ling Miao. I've only delayed the inevitable. The master turned to him and said, "Come here and take a look. Aren't you the one eager to learn the way of alchemy?" Wang thought bitterly, as long as this cursed man keeps making pills, I'll never save anyone. Tomorrow, the day after, there will always be someone else to sacrifice. I cannot become his accomplice. The master called out, "Open the furnace!" A reddish glow lit the room as 4 pills emerged. The master handed one to Wang. "This is for you. The other disciples lack your diligence." "Thank you, master," Wang replied, extending his hands to accept it. The master stepped closer and commanded, "Eat it while it's hot." As Wang bowed, masking, his rage behind a calm expression, he thought, the only way to save them and myself is to take him down. Swallowing the pill, Wang immediately sensed something was wrong. A scorching heat overwhelmed him, his skin turning a vivid pink, steam rising from his body like Luffy's Gear 2nd. However, I doubt he'll be able to do Gomu Gomu no Pistol Gatling Bazooka Rocket J at Pistol, or Red Hawk. Maybe once he achieves immortality. Stripping off his clothes, he gasped for relief. The master observed calmly, saying, "Go and rest, Xuanyang. This pill is potent. You'll need time to absorb its effects." Still reeling, Wang nodded. "Yes, master." On his way back, Wang leaned against a wall, gripping it so hard that a chunk disintegrated beneath his fingers. Racked with guilt, he recalled the old man begging for his life and the horror of consuming a pill made from human lives. Overcome with disgust, he vomited, thinking, just one pill gave me this power. That bastard must have consumed countless others. How can I defeat someone like him? Ling Miao approached, gently holding his arm. Seeing him so shaken, she asked softly, "Senior brother, are you okay?" Wang struggled to speak, but Ling Miao reassured him, "Don't blame yourself. You had no other choice." The two sat in silence for a while, until Ling Miao broke it. Her serious expression pierced him as she asked, "Do you intend to go against the master?" Wang turned to her, startled. He hadn't expected her to know what he was thinking. He suddenly pushed her against the wall, signaling for her to be quiet, and whispered, "Don't you want to live anymore? You know we're being watched. He can know everything that happens here." "Calm down, senior brother," she reassured him. "Today is the day old Master Yu returns from the market. He can't hear us now." Confused, Wang asked, "Old Master Yu? Who is that?" Meanwhile, the medicinal workers glanced at him like he was the Grim Reaper himself, watching from the corner of his eye, expecting the situation where the others would regard him as a partner in the old bastard's schemes. He grabbed the girl's hand and led her to another spot to talk, but they didn't realize someone was following them stealthily. Turning to Ling Miao, Wang urged her to continue talking about old Master Yu. She replied, "Old Master Yu is old Master Yu. He's someone you can't touch or see. My grandfather said only a great Taoist master can order him to do things. Anyway, old Master Yu returns from the market on the 1st and 15th day of every month." Wang thought to himself, "So on these 2 days each month, that crazy old man can't monitor the entire Qingfeng temple." This was crucial information. Ling Miao interrupted him, her face serious, and asked, "Do you really want to go against the master?" Wang gritted his teeth in anger, saying, "Of course, I want to eat his flesh and drink his blood." Ling Miao, excited by his decision, encouraged him, "Count on me, I want to help too." But just then, they heard a voice calling, "Count, Me in too. A skinny boy approached, holding some bread, offering it to them. Senior brother Lee, maybe you don't remember me, but I'm a kid born and raised without a name. You can call me Gua, he said, bowing and handing them the bread. It means puppy boy in English. Ling Miao glared at him, threatening. What were you eavesdropping on? The boy rubbed his hands submissively and explained. No, how could I eavesdrop? I was just looking for senior brother Lee for protection, and I happened to overhear senior sister Bai's last words. She replied skeptically. You don't know anything about our situation. How can we trust you? He countered, in a sycophantic tone. Isn't it enough that I admire senior brother Lee? Isn't that a good enough reason to join you? Wang, watching from the side, thought about old Xuanyang. Wasn't their group formed in the same way at the beginning? He approached Guwa and asked, Aren't you afraid of me? Guwa smiled, scratching his head, and replied with a grin. How could I be? Senior brother Lee, you didn't have many choices. Wang sighed and accepted him into the group, warning him, Don't regret your decision today. In his mind, he hoped that they would not end up like the previous Xuanyang. In the following days, Wang pondered solutions to eliminate Dan Yangzi, the master's true name. But of course, a level 2 versus a level 99 master, along with 2 other level 1s, made it clearly impossible to defeat him. During this time, the master had brought in other human catalysts, one by one, pleading, and Wang could only listen to their last words, filled with guilt, until the 8th catalyst. Wang bowed as he reported to the master in front of the cauldron, saying, The medicine is ready. The master nodded and turned to Xuanyang, praising him for his recent good work. As I've said before, our Shishang Donghua sect rewards and punishes those who deserve it. Since you want to learn alchemy, I will teach you the formula for the blood-nourishing pills. Wang looked up in astonishment while Zheng glanced at him out of the corner of his eye, full of envy. The master raised a finger and explained, Don't underestimate this formula. Even though it's simple, it's still an immortal technique engraved in the celestial book. The master begins dictating the recipe while Wang turns around looking for something to write with. He finds some stones, possibly coal, and starts writing using the white robe he's wearing. He writes 20 tiles of human elixir, half a kati of balsam seed, 24 tiles of sunrise stones, oven lit at 3 a.m., right to take a bath. Use the eyes to illuminate it. Use your breath to bribe. Use your spirit to fumigate it. Raise the heat slowly with gentle flames and turn on the furnace at 4 a.m. After finishing, Wang, sitting down, informs the master that he has written down the formula. The master remains silent, irritated, as Wang asks if he can come closer to see if he missed anything, but he was kicked directly in the face and sent flying a few meters swollen, bloody face, wondering what on earth just happened. Why did this maniac kick him in the face suddenly? Despite his writing not being perfect, it is still legible. The crazy master didn't even check. It seems to have been due to his own behavior. Wang recalls that, back when he had class in the morning, there was nothing written or depicted in the Qingfeng temple. Everything was passed on orally. So, could it mean this maniac can't read? Meanwhile, the master walks past him, continuing to dictate the formula. Wang, lying on the ground, wonders who could have passed him the formula from the book he mentioned. That moment, the senior brother approaches, lowering his head and says, I didn't expect this, you Xuanyang. The master is even willing to pass you the formula from the heavenly book. You must have really made him happy, with a sarcastic tone. Sitting up, Wang replies, If the master values me, that's his business. Even if he gave me all the contents of the heavenly book, there's nothing you can do about it. Standing up, he gestures to pat the senior brother on the shoulder and tells him, If you don't have anything else to say, then leave. I have to help the master organize the ingredients. But before he can, Zheng strikes him in the ribs. Wang spits blood and barely has time to curl up from the pain before Zheng kicks him in the stomach, angrily saying, The master hasn't even taught me the immortality techniques.
Do you think he'll tell you? And how dare you use the master to subjugate me? When the master and I were persecuted, You didn't even know where you were!
Coughing, Wang responds, "It's clear, senior brother. You don't have the cultivation talent. Otherwise, following the master's path for so long, why hasn't he taught you the immortality techniques?" Furious, Zheng casts a skill, and his hand, glowing with a yellow flame, strikes Wang, yelling, "Bastard! Are you looking for death?" He then sends Wang flying into the wall, which shatters into 1,000 pieces upon impact. After a while, Xuanyuan approaches, muttering, "Why don't you listen? Luckily, you took the pills the master gave you, or you would be finished by now. I told you to stay calm in front of Zheng Kun. Why do you keep provoking him?" Helping Wang up from the rubble, Xuanyuan says as Wang coughs, "Why? He can't do anything to me. If he kills more disciples, there won't be anyone left to maintain this place." Master's old master Yu is nearby. Observing, Xuanyuan, puzzled, asks, "Old Yu? What do you mean?" Surprised, Wang looks at him and wonders why he don't know about old Yu's existence. He realizes that the old Xuanyang, when they fled that day, wasn't 1 or 15 of the month, and disciples close to the master, like Zheng Kun, weren't even taught the immortality techniques. Master doesn't trust anyone, and as a result, the disciples he teaches. Meanwhile, Xuanyuan sees Wang laughing maniacally for no reason and grows concerned, wondering why he's going crazy again, despite the master having given him the medicine. But Wang, laughing, says nothing. He has found a turning point. In the next chapter, a head in a jar appears behind Wang, while in front of him stands a monstrous Buddha-shaped figure with a vagina. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's hit 15,000 likes for part 2. As many of you have noticed, several large channels, like ActionToon, have recently been taken down. To stay prepared, I've taken some precautions. I've created backup channels and expanded to TikTok. In the future, I'm also considering posting on Rumble. You'll find all the links in the description.